Sarah, we aren't just talking about a self-help book today. This is a manual for a mental firmware upgrade. David Goggins didn't just lose weight. He systematically dismantled the version of himself that was a zombie addicted to comfort and built a one warrior from the wreckage.
A firmware upgrade? Marcus, it's a trauma response masquerading as a philosophy. He admits he was born broken, raised under the literal belt of a devil in a beautiful neighborhood. This isn't just discipline. This is a man who was swallowed by quicksand as a child and decided the only way to breathe was to become the sand. It's extremism.
Is it extremism to demand the truth? Most people are walking around with dead eyes, living at 40% of their actual capability. Goggins looked in the mirror and realized that motivation is a temporary fix. It's a cup of lemonade that doesn't change your brain. He sought out pain because suffering is the only fair place where you can actually see who you are.
Oh, how romantic. A fair place where you urinate blood and have your kidneys shut down after running 101 miles without training. You call it power. I see a man who was so addicted to the drug of food and comfort because he was drowning in toxic stress. He swapped one addiction for another, the addiction to the barbaric beauty of seeing a human soul break.
But that's the point. He found that the governor in our minds is just software. When your body says it's done, you're only at 40%. He proved that by running on broken legs during Bud/S, wrapping them in duct tape and black socks just to survive another day of controlled drowning. That's not a disorder, that's self-mastery.
It's a tragedy, Marcus. He describes a childhood where his moral compass was a splinter in a turned-out mind. He didn't have a foundation, so he built one out of scars and adrenaline. But look at the cost. He was half dead and soul-tired for years, ignoring every physical signal of a hole in his heart until he almost dropped dead on a bike.
And even with a hole in his heart, he did what the experts at MIT said was genetically impossible. He showed that the mind is the most powerful weapon we own, but we've forgotten how to use it. He didn't just accept his bad hand, he used it as jet fuel.
At what point does the fuel burn the pilot, Marcus? That's what we're really debating here.
Let's talk about the accountability mirror then. Sarah, you call it self-destruction. I call it the first time he was actually honest. He stood there, shaved his head, and told the reflection, "You are a loser. You are a pojo. You read like a third grader." That's not bullying. That's radical self-truth.
It is internalized abuse, Marcus. He was repeating the language of a father who called him a gangster while whipping him until he was covered in wheels. When Goggins stands in front of that mirror and calls himself dumb or fat, he isn't finding strength. He's giving the devil under his roof the final word. It's a psychological massacre.
No, it's about stripping the ego. You can't fix what you won't name. We live in a world that wants to fluff everything, to massage the ego until we're all soft. Goggins says if you're fat, say you're fat. If you're a coward who's worked a job you hate for 30 years, call yourself a coward. That's the only way to find the courage to not die one.
Right, because the best way to encourage someone is to confirm their worst insecurities with a Post-it note. There is a difference between responsibility and self-flagellation. He admits that his path of least resistance was cheating through school because he felt normal for the first time. He was a damaged child with white patches on his skin and hair falling out from toxic stress. He needed a therapist, Marcus, not a drill sergeant in the mirror.
The military was his therapy. The accountability mirror gave him a ritual. It forced him to answer the simple, poisonous questions that arise when you're suffering. When he was 297 pounds and failing the ASVAB, the mirror didn't lie to him. It told him he had 3 months to lose 106 pounds or remain a pest control zombie forever.
And he did it by starving himself and riding a stationary bike for hours while dreaming of difficult ASVAB questions. He describes depression as a natural side effect of his training. Marcus, he was feeding on his depression. That is not a sustainable system. That is a suicide mission with a long fuse.
And yet, he's still here. He outlived the version of himself that was nothing and nowhere. He traded a poker hand of excuses for a cookie jar of victories. He learned that you can't visualize a lie. You have to earn the right to believe in yourself through work.
You earn self-respect through growth, not through callousing the mind until it's a frozen steak that blood can't even circulate through.
That calloused mind is what saved him. Sarah, look at the pool evolution in BUD/S. Water competency. They were trying to drown him. Goggins had negative buoyancy. He was the only black guy in the class, feeling those dark waters of his past in Indiana rising up to swallow him. Most people would have quit when the doctor found the sickle cell trait.
He did quit the first time, Marcus. He took the medical out and felt like a trousers-wearing coward for years. That's the trauma. He spent the next decade trying to kill that version of himself by seeking out hell weeks like they were vacations.
But he went back 3 times. He did 3 hell weeks in 1 year. That is how you callous the mind. You go back to the thing that scares you until it belongs to you. Like the intersection where that redneck pulled a gun on him. He ran back to it until the fear was gone and the street was his. He took the soul of his own fear.
Taking souls, another one of his predatory metaphors. He talks about taking the soul of his instructors by singing Adagio for strings in the freezing surf while everyone else was shivering. He wanted to occupy real estate in their heads. It's not growth. It's a power struggle born from a childhood where he had zero power over a father who controlled everything.
It's a tactical advantage. Life is a game of finding leverage. If you can smile when you're broken and bleeding and on crutches, you've already won because your opponent doesn't know what to do with you. He took the soul of Psycho Pete by refusing to break even when his knee was the size of a grapefruit.
Marcus. He was vomiting blood and bloody snot was running out of his nose while he carried a log. He was half dead. You're glorifying a man who was literally dying to be uncommon. Is it really a mental armor if it just hides a cracked foundation of self-denial?
He addressed the foundation. He sat on his mother's couch, cried, and realized he was his own worst enemy. He accepted that Goggins was part of him and used that doctorate in pain to become the sharpest sword ever created.
A sword that eventually breaks. Let's talk about his motivation is garbage mantra.
Because it is. Motivation is a feeling. Discipline is a system. He doesn't wake up inspired to run in a sauna suit in 100-degree heat. He does it because he has a 24-hour mission every day. He beats the morning by running at 4 a.m. while his family sleeps.
And that's the success? A man who lives like a monk, has a very small social circle, and ignores his body's signals until he has a stroke-level heart event? He says we all waste 4 to 5 hours a day on meaningless bullshit like social media. Maybe, Marcus, but we also spend those hours connecting with people, which he admits he struggled to do, even in his own vzvod.
Oh, connecting. You mean being one of the guys and going to bars instead of studying tactics. He chose to be uncommon among uncommon. He wanted to be the thinker-shooter who doesn't just meet the standard but destroys it. That's why he went to Army Ranger School and Delta Selection. Not for the patch, but for the war with himself.
He went to Delta Selection, dreamed of the future instead of checking his map, and got lost. He failed because he lost focus. Even the great Goggins isn't immune to the human brain's need for rest. He keeps trying to outrun the ghost of the kid who couldn't read, but the ghost is always there.
He knows the ghost is there. That's why he uses the cookie jar. It's not a glory days trip, it's an energy bank. When he was at mile 81 of that 100-mile run, covered in shit and blood, he reached into that jar and remembered shaving his head and graduating buds. That's not motivation, that's using your own history as a battery.
But who can actually live like this, Marcus? He asks, who else in this world is in this fight? The answer is, almost nobody, because it's a pathology. He describes a life where there is no finish line. That sounds like a prison sentence, not a life.
It's the only way to avoid the comfort of mediocrity. We're all slaves to our own minds. Most people settle for less than their best in every aspect of their lives. Goggins is just the guy who had the balls to ask, what if? What if I can lose 100 pounds in 3 months? What if I can beat the world record for pull-ups on my 3rd try after failing in front of millions?
And on that 3rd try, he had deep rhabdo and his hands were falling apart. He lifted weight equivalent to 3 space shuttles in 1 day. Is that greatness, or is that self-abuse with a better PR team? He admits he wasn't even happy when he broke the record. He just wanted to move on to the next suffering.
Because the reward is the suffering itself. It's the capping of the achievement. He found peace and clarity only when he thought he was dying in a hospital bed in Chicago. He realized that all the haters and racists were just part of his story, and he thanked them for creating him. That is the ultimate armored mind.
He found peace when he stopped running, Marcus. He spent 38 years in a state of war and only felt whole when he finally accepted the kid who couldn't read. It took a near-death experience for him to realize he didn't need to outrun his own shadow.
But he did go back. In 2018, at 43 years old, he was back in the mountains as a wildland firefighter, digging lines for 18 hours a day in the heat. He's running faster than ever, without any tape on his legs. He's not cured of his drive, he's refined it. He still looks at the skeptics and asks, what if?
My fear, Marcus, is that people will read this and think they need to break their bodies to find their souls. Goggins is a miracle of medicine who ran with a hole in his heart. Most people who try to be Goggins will just end up with permanent injuries and a sense of inadequacy because they can't match a man who is uncommon among uncommon.
He isn't telling you to match him, he's telling you to match your own potential. He's telling you to stop leaving money on the table. If your hell week is just cleaning your house or studying an extra hour, then do it with the intensity of a SEAL. Take the soul of your own laziness.
Maybe. But there has to be a line between armored mind and numb heart. He spent years ignoring the pulsiruishi ache until he was a shell of a human. I worry that the system read of Goggins is just a manual for becoming a high-functioning machine that forgot how to be a person.
And I worry that without a system read like Goggins, we're just a nation of zombies addicted to the maximum zone of comfort. I'd rather be a machine that earned its last rest than a ghost that never lived.
Well, Marcus, you've certainly taken the soul of this debate.
What if, Sarah? What if we're both right?
Then I'll see you at 4 a.m. for that run. But I'm bringing my own cookie jar.
Hoo-yah!
Thank you for listening to this discussion on the System Read podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit the like button and subscribe to ensure you don't miss our upcoming deep dives.